Down a darkened drive, you'll find their candlelight. From a widow's peak, you'll see it burning bright. Through the double doors into their dusty tomb, you'll feel eyes from paintings follow room to room. On the creaky stairs, you may think twice, as you tell yourself those bangs are mice. In the upstairs hall, you'll see shadows dance. There's a light from the candle, this is your only chance. You run and you cry as you curse this dark night, only to find at the end there's no candlelight. Instead, there's some headphones you put on full of fear. When suddenly it's every nightmare rolled into one that you hear. And it says, "Welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow with your host, John and Stacey Edwards of ParanormalSideshow.com. Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow. I'm your host, John Edwards, and joined as always by my lovely author wife, Stacey.
Hello.
And we are very excited.
Very excited.
We are stoked.
Yes.
We are enigmatic. I don't even know what that word means.
Sounds good.
It does sound good, doesn't it? Enigmatic. Yes. I should know what that one means. People use that one a lot. It's just one of those that's already escaped me. Travis Mullen just hit himself in the head with a hammer.
Probably.
I promise you that. So we are very excited. Anybody who follows us on social media, you obviously know already. So shut up and let us talk to the other people, okay? You're going to ruin it for everyone. It's like when you bring the gum all just for yourself. All right, so very excited because the book. The book, the infamous book,
much anticipated.
The book that our patrons that go back to Haunted South in 2010 hear us talking about the book. So here we are in 2019, okay, in that same bloody book.
We're like Tool.
Yes, we are. We are the paranormal equivalent of the band Tool.
It just took that long.
So we've been working on that book since 2008.
Yeah.
It's been 2007, I think. That's when I first started writing that book.
Right.
So believe it or not, the last remaining chapter, this is funny, this is trivia. The last remaining chapter of the original book that I wrote got nixed earlier today. Well, it wasn't earlier today. It was probably a couple weeks ago, but
probably.
I just got told about it today.
Right.
It was like, hey man, just letting you know that the editor couldn't find a place for that whole chapter and nixed it and put it there. And I'm like, I'm not concerned with it. Nah. I've had that chapter written for...
It'll go somewhere eventually. Eventually.
It sure will. Yeah, it'll go somewhere. So I am very excited because that was just to make it, cohesive through the whole thing.
Yes.
And this book is so exciting for us because it's such a big piece of who we are. So it's a bit personal.
Yes.
And when you read it, the weird thing for me and the weird thing for Stacey, we were talking about this, is just how, when we got done with it, how personal it really was. And how it was such a big piece. The book is written on purpose, like you're sitting and having a conversation with the two of us. So, I'm talking to you, Stacey's talking to you, and we talk together in the same chapters, but we try to do it as much in chronological order as we possibly can.
Right.
We start with the event, which was the first event that happened when we were dating. That, those of you who play along at home, you should know what that event is.
Yes.
And we go into way more detail than we ever get to do on the show.
Right.
And we talk about some things that we wouldn't talk about on the show only because, how we are about the show. We really like it to be very all-inclusive, not really polarize anyone or alienate anybody.
Right.
But in the book, we're like, I don't care. So we're very polarizing and
right.
No, I'm just playing. There's just a lot more detail in the book because it's a book, right?
Right.
And this is like the film here. So, it's never going to be the same, but it's definitely the story of John and Stacey, the paranormal years. Is it everything there is? Well, a lot of it, yeah. We put some very personal things in here, and we think it's intriguing, things that were hard to write about.
They were.
But it's really all that makes us who we are. Now, we said we had two big projects. That's project 1. Okay, so there is a project 2. And project 2 is also going fantastic.
It is, yes.
Right now, knock on wood, project 2 looks as good as project 1.
Yes, I feel like it's moving forward.
They are all paranormal. So, we have to be the way we are about it. Unfortunately, we can't just blab about stuff, because the biggest reason is it may not ever come to fruition. And then we have to sit and explain why. So, but the other reason is because we signed a contract saying we wouldn't.
Yes.
So that's a real big piece to it.
Yeah.
But we're doing the first of this show a little bit different, just because we wanted to talk about the book, because you guys are our family. We are so excited, and we love all of you so much. We communicate with so many of you on Facebook, on regular messenger, through the paranormal website, through Paranormal Sideshow website. So many of you we just communicate with anyway. And our original plan was to announce the book release. The book will be released in mid-February.
Yes.
And the thing about that is, we were going to do a pre-sale starting today.
Right.
We're going to have to delay that till probably the next episode, just because they're not sure on the final price yet.
Right.
I'm just being full disclosure here. So what we can do, though, for new patrons, if you would like to visit patreon.com/paranormal sideshow and sign up and be a new patron, there will be a level.
Yes, it'll be the sideshow off of the 5th kind.
Yes. So we have the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and now 5th. And it will involve you getting the t-shirt, the tarot card, everything up to and including the book, autographed personally to you.
Yes.
Now, next week, for the people that are already patrons, we will have the pre-sale.
Yeah, we'll just do that on our website.
Yeah, we'll do that on the website, and we'll have the pre-sale for you. And that way, because you've already got, obviously, the other stuff there, and we're just going to do it personally autographed once again. No extra, of course, on that. We're just going to personally autograph it for the cover price of the book. And, then if you want it earlier than that, and you could care less if we graffiti up your book or not, then you can order it on Amazon, and it should be around, I'm just going to tell them, the original plan on this was Valentine's Day, because we thought, the whole book is till death, right?
Right.
So we thought it would be cute to have it on Valentine's Day. And
it might still be.
It could be.
We just aren't sure.
That was the original target. And the full title, of course, I'm going to say one more time, Till Death and Beyond. Oh, you don't want to finish it?
No, you go ahead. You're doing so well.
Okay. Till Death and Beyond, The Haunted Journey of John and Stacey Edwards.
Yes, very excited for that.
It makes me real excited.
And I really like the cover. I think it just really sums it up very well. And I love the color, and I just think it looks great.
Well, it was weird. The color thing was weird.
It was, because it ended up being that green color, and that's the color you've used. That was one of the facts we talked about on our anniversary show, that you've used the black and the green for paranormal and wrestling. And I don't think that they knew that.
They didn't
and
know
they
that.
just picked that color.
They didn't know that.
And it's like the exact color.
Yeah, it was completely, it was serendipity.
Yes.
They absolutely had no idea that was my color.
Right.
And so for paranormal, for the band, for wrestling, I've always used that particular green and black. And here it was. They sent us this. And they're like, hey, you guys like this? Well, to be honest, if we had sit and created it, we would have said, we should probably have that for anybody who's ever known us.
Yes.
So, just amazing stuff. We're really excited about it. Like I said, I would just suggest that you go to patreon.com/paranormal sideshow if you want to go ahead and get on that train. Otherwise, the pre-sale will be on the next episode, and then you'll be able to purchase it yourself on Amazon coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll blast it out freaking everywhere.
Absolutely. We'll send the dates out as soon as we know for sure.
Yeah, the second that happens, we'll let all of you know. And of course, for our Patreon members of the fourth kind, you've already got a book coming your way.
Yes.
So we appreciate the support we've received. We love each and every one of you so much. And you know what? It's just been this big love fest for us, like 1969. Ever since we started, especially the sideshow.
Yes.
We started with the haunted style. We went to third side. We did all that. But especially since we started this on our own, this journey on our own has been a lot of fun. So in keeping with that, this year, you're going to see us at a lot of conventions.
Yes.
Mid to the end of the year and then beyond, you're going to see us on conventions. You're going to see us back out doing that thing instead of just doing the investigations on our own.
Right.
We're going to go back to the way we started this monkey dance, and that's going to be doing the conventions, the meet and greets, new banners, new hairdo for me, new goatee for Stacey.
Right.
We're going to be back out there. We're going to be, hustling the books. We're going to be doing the lectures, all that good stuff. We're going to be having some radical hashtag mommy daddy time and some Sheratons.
I think what you meant is public investigations.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can let them in too.
Without the hashtag mommy daddy time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I thought that was our highest Patreon level.
No. Well, speaking of Patreon, we have a shout out to do.
Okay.
For a new patron.
Yes.
And it is Mr. Seth Bell has become a new patron. So thank you, Seth.
You know what? I wish we had rung a bell. Wouldn't that have made sense?
It would have. I should have brought one.
Seth has a very paranormal name.
He does.
Because, the whole bell thing.
Yes.
I think that's really cool.
He's one of the listeners that we actually converse with pretty frequently.
Yeah.
So.
Because he has weird stuff go on like we do.
Yes.
Yeah. Seth is good people. I like to put it in that category. I used to have this manager when I was a teenager at a Kentucky Fried Chicken. There's some trivia for you.
All right.
When I was a teenager, I was like 16 years old. And I had this general manager of the Kentucky Fried Chicken called Sandman. That was his name. It was on his name tag.
Right.
I don't know. And Sandman would say, "She's good people." I'd be like, "What? She's good people." Oh, okay. Hey, you see that guy there? Yeah, he good people. And I could never figure out why the S was not there with the he and she, but anyway, he good people. And I've always took that. I've always loved that since then.
Right.
That was a very odd place to work.
I'm sure it was. I can't even picture it.
I can tell you this much. The original recipe got ruined for me for life because of the guy I worked with. There used to be a big metal wall between the front and the back. And I had to leave, man. I had to leave that place because of this nasty dude I worked with. I'll never forget it. I'm not even going to give the details.
Right.
I'm just going to say everybody has horror stories, right?
Right.
And we hear them all the time. There's horror stories out there from food service and stuff. But this dude, this dude was not good people.
Well, I'm sure whoever he was probably doesn't work there anymore. That was quite a while back.
I would think not. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I said I was 16, It wasn't that long ago, Stacey. Yeah, so listen, I have to bring this up.
Okay.
Because it's really cool.
Okay.
And we talked about the book. We've done all this stuff. So it's time to really talk about the big important thing here.
Okay.
It's time to talk about your DNA.
Yes, I got the results.
Yes.
DNA results.
And it's time to go into them in depth.
Okay.
As we did with mine. So you're a Viking?
I'm not a Viking. I'm about 4% Swedish. So
yeah,
it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's cool.
And there's 14% Ireland and Scotland.
There you go.
So I got some Irish and Scottish going on. About 35% England, Wales, and, Northwestern Europe.
Wow.
Which I expected that.
Well, some of that could still be some Viking there.
But the biggest percentage, 47%.
Jeez, that's a big...
47.
So we're doing this for the first time right now, people. We're just now finding out about this. So you got to give me a second. I wasn't expecting you to be 47% anything.
Yes, 47%. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is, considering your blood type and the fact you're an alien. Tell them your blood type.
O negative?
Yeah, type O negative. It's one of the reasons I married her. I was like, really? You're type O negative, like the band? So what is it? Give it to me.
47%.
Hold on, let me guess. I've always said it. Mm-hmm. I've always said it. I've said it on the show. Mm-hmm. I said it last week, I think. Portuguese.
No, I'm not Portuguese. No Portuguese in my percentages.
Oh.
No. 47% French.
That's cool. That's really awesome for you.
I did say before that I thought that I'd be French Canadian, and that looks like, because it tells you the migration patterns on here, and it looks like the first migration pattern was to Canada through Quebec, and there is a migration pattern on here through Portuguese.
Oh,
so, and I think
that would be through Portugal.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, just right. Let you know, Portuguese is down the street.
Right.
Oddly enough,
I don't know why I said it that way.
Oddly enough, they don't speak Portuguese there.
And then there's a migration pattern to New England settlers, which of course I knew about that. So
I am right about the Portugal connection.
Yeah, and I do believe I have a second cousin that actually has Portuguese in their DNA. Like I've had several family members that have kind of done this. He's not a close relative.
Well, what's really weird is it's not that I've known a lot of people from Portugal and I just see them and go, oh, hey, she looks like my friend from Portugal.
Right.
It was a word that came to me years ago when I first met you. Mm-hmm. And you were like, I don't know what I am, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I think you look Portuguese. And you were like, really? And I acted smart. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. It was not that. I'm being honest with you right now and let you know.
Right.
That was all BS. That word that came to me.
Right.
Which I think you would be more impressed with now that I know you better.
Right.
The fact that word popped up.
Right.
I think is better than the fact that I thought you looked Portugal.
Right.
I'm being funny. I just said Portugal.
I know. Okay. I caught that. I was going to ignore it.
Oh.
But the French thing, that is just crazy. Do I look French?
I mean, yeah. I mean, no,
I don't know.
No, you do. I took 3 years of French, and because I loved the French, I loved the culture. Now, this is something that I joke about a lot of stuff, so sometimes I have to be serious. I loved the culture. I loved the romance of it, and I was always a big, huge fan. Now, I'm a big fan of literature, and anybody, once again, who listens, you guys know, I love Lord of the Rings. I love all that stuff. But do you know what my first love as far as books was?
What's that?
You know, The Three Musketeers. So The Three Musketeers, Man in the Iron Mask, Alexander Dumas. I love those books. I love those stories. I just always have.
Right.
And I've also always been a fan of the Revolution. Right. Seems like the French will just... They don't stand for much. Like you can only oppress them for so long before they're just like, it's, oh no, and they're pulling their glove off.
That's where that French comes in.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, it's interesting because I'm pretty sure I get all that from my mother's side of the family because I'm pretty sure I have some uncles that did DNA and they were almost completely 100%.
And I'll tell you something else is interesting about that. The very fact of how much you love. How much you love a certain musical.
Oh yeah, I love Les Mis.
Yeah.
And I actually took French in high school too.
Did you?
Yeah, 2 years.
I thought you only took Spanish.
No, I didn't take Spanish. Spanish was silly.
Wait a second.
You didn't know that?
No, I really thought you took. I thought you were one of those nerds that took Latin.
No.
Because of your love for math.
No. I kind of wish I had taken Latin, but it didn't really need it unless you're going to go like in the medical field.
Right.
And I wasn't planning on doing that. I did take French and I really enjoyed it. And I really liked, like we did culture days, where everybody make a dish and bring food. And those are my favorite.
My first French teacher didn't wear a bra. And she was like legit French.
Right.
And she would always come and like, if you messed up on your papers, she'd have to bend over in front of you. And she wore these really loose blouses.
Right.
From what I hear.
Right.
And she had French breast. And they look like they're in cursive. I can't explain it, but French breasts are just different. And they have like this, they look like they're in cursive. Okay. They're very curvy. And so I remember that. Now, my second French teacher was hell on earth. She was the spawn of the Dark Lord.
I see.
She could have been my Voldemort. My second French teacher was one of the most unusual women to have ever walked the face of the planet Earth. She retired from teaching due to me.
That's
quite
the accomplishment.
Well, it's the second one that did it.
Yeah.
I had one that was in first grade that told my mom to her face that she retired from teaching because of me.
In first grade?
In first grade, yeah. And I had a second one that did the same thing. I used to argue points. I've always been very, like Ariana is.
Right.
I've always been very, like, well, tell me why, But my French teacher in French 2, she was so terrible. She wore these huge glasses, number one. And it would like startle you if you looked at her with not expecting it and the eyes were just right there,
Right.
And she had this haircut that was very short and it was kind of punky on top, black, but not in a cool way.
Right.
Like in a way that she does this just for her evilness. She wore these stiff skirts. Like you can imagine like a light purple color that goes all the way to her ankles, but it's very stiff and thick like a blanket, but like a blanket that's been bathed in starch.
Right.
And she wore shoulder pads like a football player.
Did she wear a bra?
I really don't care. I don't know. I could tell you that my typing teacher didn't, but I know that Mrs. A is what I'll call her, just for protection from me and her. Mrs. A and I had quite a history. There's pictures of me and her where I'm giving her rabbit ears and stuff, where she thinks I'm finally throwing in the white towel, and I'm smiling, and she's just like all proud that, because I went up to her and I was like, you know what? Let's just forget all the problems we've had. You're such a great teacher. Can I have a picture with you? And she's like, oh, yes, John. Because she wasn't French, but she was like Mongolian. I don't know. But it was just it was like, oh, yes, John, you can have a picture. And so I stood there and she put her big man hand on my side and I put my fingers up there, and all the kids are trying not to laugh because they were so sick of our fights. But I had to sit up front with her and all this stuff most of the time because I don't know, she thought I was a disruption.
I can't imagine.
It was a lot of fun.
I had the same teacher both years. She was
I thought you had my teacher. I thought you were going to say I had her, and I was like, what?
No. The same French teacher for French 1 and French 2.
Oh,
she was just the French teacher at my high school.
Oh, really?
We had one French teacher.
She didn't have a name?
Yes.
Oh, I thought maybe they just called her the French teacher.
No,
she's like, hello,
Mrs. Peters.
Oh, did you have to pick a name?
Yes.
The French name? What was your French name?
Oh, what did I pick? I think I picked like Jacqueline.
You can't remember? You had to go by it at all times, though.
I honestly don't remember.
Oh, my God.
They weren't as strict about making us go by our French names.
Do you know what mine was?
What?
You want to take a guess?
Was it John?
It was John something.
No, I don't know.
My name was Jean-Francois.
Oh, of course. Very romantic.
We had to pick it, and I was just like, I could see myself with the rose in my mouth.
Of course.
I always wanted
with the gondola.
I always wanted to be the handsome stranger, like the Don Juan,
right.
Or something. I wanted to be the guy with the mask that just came in through lonely housewives' windows, and I always felt bad for housewives that weren't getting it.
Right.
Even as a young teenager, I really wanted to be that person that just was
that hero.
Well, yeah, I wanted to be there as a service. I mean, think about it. The right kind of masked stranger can save marriages. Because they don't have to go out and look for it if I'm coming through their window.
Yeah, that's some kind of skewed weird logic. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's not some kind of, it's not dirty or filthy or.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's romantic. It's not even scary.
I see.
Like I would come through their window and they'd be like, ah.
Yeah, look at this masked kid climbing through my window.
Well, it's not like a full-on toboggan mask.
It's like a Zorro mask.
Yeah, like a Zorro mask, and I'll have a rose in my mouth.
You'd have to wear a cape too.
I'm going to wear a cape. I'm going to wear gloves. I'm going to have leather boots that fold down, and assless chaps.
Wow.
What? The assless chaps are like a surprise. I've got the cape on, and then I just go.
People could be calling the police. Excuse me, I think I'm being robbed by a Chippendale dancer. Could you send the cops?
Yes, people like you See, I wouldn't come in your window because you're completely a satisfied housewife. I would have to go in like lonely people. It's really a service.
Like squirrel.
Oh. Okay, I get it. Yes. I don't know how we get off on those sometimes.
I have no idea. I like the new technique, though.
Yeah.
The squirrel technique. Seems to work.
It does. It does. I have to look. And oh, my God. I think I'll blame the excitement.
Okay.
Can we blame the excitement?
We can, yes.
All right. Well, speaking of excitement, I think it's about time for some French news. She's the GOAT of paranormal news, traveling the globe to find you the stories you didn't know you needed to hear, and the stories she knows you'll never forget. It's time for Stacey Edwards and Paranormal News.
All right, so let's get to the news.
Does that mean every time I kiss you, it's a French kiss?
Half of it is.
Does it mean when you goose me, it's a French tickler?
No, that's not what that means. Okay. Good questions, though.
Just wondering.
Good questions. All right, so let's get to our...
When you get sunburnt, is it a French fry?
Story. Do you have a lot of those?
I'll quit.
Okay.
Squirrel.
All right, so this first story is just talking about the recent super blood moon lunar eclipse.
Oh, the super duper bloody clump of moon dust.
This is a story about a meteor that hit the moon during the eclipse that was actually caught by a lot of people.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It was really crazy.
Because everybody was looking.
Exactly. Everybody was looking.
It's pretty neat. I wonder if somebody slung it just to... like somebody's like, hey, watch this, nano, and like threw it right into the moon.
Well, it's very rare. I mean, it happens a lot. Like the moon gets hit by meteorites.
It happens a lot, but it's very rare.
It's very rare to see it.
Oh, okay.
But it just so happened that so many people were looking at the eclipse that some people, just not astronomers, just ordinary people watching the eclipse, noticed it or had pictures of it and were posting them, and there were enough of them with the same little, pixelated dot in it to make it proof that that was actually a meteor.
So just some normal Tom, Harry, and Dicks. Or Tom, Dick, and Harry. Tom, Harry, Dicks really changes the whole...
It makes it completely different. You put some commas in there or something. I don't know.
You need to buy Tom a razor. Anyway.
Well, this article talks about an astrophysicist at the University of Huelva in Spain.
Huelva?
Yes. And at that university they have...
I wouldn't go to that university based solely on the name. Like, you like to be a little bit woody, right? You like to be like, where did you graduate? I went to Oxford, sir. Where did you go? I went to Harvard. Where did you go? I mean, you got all these woody names. I went to Notre Dame. Where did you go? Huelva.
Maybe it's a woody name in Spanish.
No. In Spanish, they're like Huelva.
Well, at the University of Huelva in Spain, they have a moon impacts detection and analysis system, or Midas.
Good Lord. Why?
That's why they do it.
Why is it always like that?
And this particular system looks for, meteorites hitting the moon. That's part of what they do. And usually they can only watch the moon around the time of the new moon, like 5 days before, 5 days after the new moon, because it's dark enough that you can see the impacts. You can't see them any other time because the moon's too bright. But since it was a lunar eclipse, it dimmed enough that they thought they might be able to see something. So they put a bunch of their telescopes directly at the moon, like 8 of them or something. And the sole purpose was to hopefully see a meteorite hit the moon during the eclipse. And it happened.
Well, see, that's what preparation does for you.
So that's very cool. And it's so rare. I don't think they've ever caught something like that during an eclipse.
Do you think that they had coitus? Because, you
or high five.
Yeah, it's more than high fives. There's more than high fives. I mean, that's when they went ahead and got married. At that point, they were just like, all right, we're just having a couple of nuptials in here right now. Come on, right?
Right.
Let's point it all here and hope that this happens.
Right.
That would be like us tuning in for FRBs, and it just so happening to be at that moment,
right.
that it does it.
Well, I thought it was a really cool story just because of all the people that saw it and took pictures of it and posted it, and then it sort of spread, on social media, and everybody's like, yeah, we had that. And, at first people were like, well, that's just a lens flare or a pixelation, but then it was the same thing on everybody's pictures.
Right.
So very cool. And then to find out that university was actually looking for that.
That's really cool.
So it's very cool.
I wonder the Chinese rocket, man. I mean, the fake China stuff over there. I mean, not that it's fake. Right. But right. I wonder if they picked up anything from that hitting.
I don't know.
I think it's cool because, they say that the astronauts that were there first, that it sounds like a bell.
Right, when things hit it.
When things hit it. Mm-hmm. That's why I was wondering if the China rover, with its audio,
would catch anything.
Would catch it. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool.
To see if it had some kind of like...
I don't know how close it is because they're at a certain specific spot on the dark side, and obviously this was on the front side. So
if it's hollow, though...
I don't know.
One would have to wonder.
You would have to wonder. All right, well, let's move on.
I mean, even if it was hollow, that would explain the divots when it gets hit, wouldn't it? It's weird how many impact craters.
Well, I think it gets hit a lot, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very strange. All of that's very strange.
It's very cool, though, at the same time.
All right, well, let's move on to this next story.
And some of the large craters. Yeah. Like those big craters. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No time in our time that we've been looking at it, that we've been writing down things, have one of those, hit.
Right, one of the great big ones.
The great big ones. It's just like it was just made. It was like painted. It's like, let's put these big craters on here. They'll never wonder why they don't get hit with it now.
It's something to wonder about.
I mean, a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, because some of those you wouldn't want to. I would piss my pants if something that big hit the moon, because you can see the crater marks from here.
Right.
Naked eye, normal night. Mm-hmm. That's how big those impact craters are. Think about that, because when you're taking a picture from here to the moon or from the moon to here, you're not going to see a building. You wouldn't even be able to tell your town that you're in. Okay. You're just not going to be able to tell because it's so much bigger than what you're thinking.
Right.
So if we're seeing any kind of indention of the land, it's something you would see like the Appalachian Mountains.
Right.
You would be able to see those. You'd be able to go, okay, that's mountains.
Yeah, that's an entire mountain range.
Yeah, exactly, an entire mountain range.
Right.
So when we look at these craters, it's like, I don't think people really, right. I don't want to be here when that hits.
When something that big hits the moon.
No, sorry. I just thought I'd throw that. That's always kind of bothered me. I've always wondered. I'm one of these guys that can only get on a plane because other people have got on it like a million times.
Right.
For instance, I was going to talk about this at the opening, but I'm just going to talk about it now.
Okay.
So last week I went to Dallas.
Right.
And I was in Dallas all week for hashtag Bruce Wayne job. And when I was there, I did do something cool. I walked down to... without anybody knowing, by the way. I had talked about it, but I didn't want anybody to go with me.
Right.
So if I'd said, because every time I mentioned it, people were like, oh, I want to go. So I didn't want anybody to go for some reason.
Right.
So I went down to where John F. Kennedy got assassinated.
Wow.
And, just kind of stood there where the grassy knoll is and stuff. And it was cool. But I would like to go back and go when the museum and stuff is open. But anyway, on the way back, because of being in the South, you always have to take a connector flight. When I was in Boston, you could just fly to Boston. It was fine. In the South, you're always going to have to take connector flights. Years go by, it used to be you always connect through Atlanta, and now we usually connect through Charlotte or Atlanta. This time I had to connect on Atlanta, going down and coming back. So we were in Atlanta, and we had to take one of these little crap planes.
Right, they give you the little tiny ones.
Right, from Atlanta to the Tri-Cities. So I hate those planes. I don't mind jets a bit. They don't bother me. I don't even get scared on jets. I'm like, I got a pretty good chance of not going down. How often does it happen? These things, though, the probability goes up quite a bit. So there was storms. There was ice, and it was bad because they come in and they're just like, sorry it took so long. We had to get ice off the... What? So there was a few factors. Our pilot looked like he was 17.
Right.
It was like Doogie Howser pilot. I kid you not. This kid, he looked like a baby. He looked like a little kid had snuck in a pilot suit.
Right.
And it was some kind of weird movie on Nickelodeon. There was this very nervous stewardess, one, because it's such a small plane. And she looked like his grandmother. That's how this all played out. And so there was a little bit of a delay because there was too much ice on our original plane. Yeah. So they had to use another plane. Okay. The other plane. So the other
backup plane.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
The not good enough to be the first plane.
Exactly. I can only imagine this son of a bitch was in some kind of barn. Okay? Somewhere in Fulton County.
Like, crack out the backup plane.
Yeah. And they pull it over. They're like, where are they going? Oh, they're going to Tri-City side. Nobody will miss them. I mean, come on, right? And so we go out there and we get on this plane. And I sit down. The leather on the seats, I don't know how else to say this. The leather on the seats is all cracked and worn. And I mean, seriously, like a used car.
Right.
Like you're getting in a 91 Honda. Okay.
Right.
And whenever you could see cracked leather on a plane, it's probably not, I mean, and it's not just like a plane you went out with your buddy's uncle.
Right.
This is a commercial airline. I won't say the name, but it's a commercial airline. So there's a weird smell in the place. This is not me being funny. The woman in front of me had gas. The woman in front of me. It was a couple. I start talking to the guy beside me, who was basically like Special Forces Johnny. He knew everything. He actually made the line. He's like, yeah, I went up in, I think it was 13 C-130s. I went up in 13 C-130s. I never landed in one because he jumped, because he's that cool.
Right.
It took me a second to figure that out. And so that's the guy I'm sitting there, and he was explaining everything, every way we could die, and he was talking about the age of the plane. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's dirty. It just doesn't feel right. And part of me, though, in my head was, you could look at this two ways. You could look at it that it's not brand new and shiny.
Right.
Or you could look at the fact that it's made a lot of trips.
Right. It's very durable.
It's made it there.
There you go. That's a good way to look at it.
So I was having to tell myself that. We got up in the air and we were coming back. It's supposed to be like a 45-minute flight. Okay. Very short. I'm thinking the whole time, I can listen to one episode of my favorite podcast and make it there, which it happens to be this wrestling podcast called the Studcast with the Tennessee stud, Ron Fuller.
Right.
It's a really good thing. He just tells old stories about wrestling from like the 60s and 70s. So I'm sitting there listening to the Studcast, and we start jumping around. I mean, we start bouncing around. It's nuts, man. It's just crazy. And I know this is it. This is it. And I'm not even going to go completely deep into how bad it got, because it got bad. But I looked out at my clock just to see, because I wanted to know the time of death.
Right.
And when it got at its worst, it was 11:11. And I was just like, and I almost punched a seat. Because I was like, son of a, are you kidding me? Because if I wasn't worried enough and looking at signs,
right,
it's freaking 11:11 when I check my phone. But it was terrible, and we went through this thing, and all of a sudden, it's like we dropped 1,000 feet, and the guy sitting with me, his name was Jeff, and Jeff's like, well, I think we dropped. It's like, did we, Jeff? Did we? And it was very terrifying. And we had something called a tailwind, and I've flown many, many times. I've just never experienced it this bad. So because of our tailwind and the fact, by the way, there was zero visibility. This has happened to me several times, but you're in a cloud and you can't see anything, and the pilot can't see anything. So anyway, the tailwind, we got there to our destination, no joke, in 35 minutes. It shaved more than 10 minutes off our flight.
Right.
Because of, and it felt like he was like, when you're in a Mustang or something and somebody gets on it.
Right.
And they're just getting on it to be redneck.
Right.
And you're pressed back in your seat. This is exactly what it felt like on the flight. Like the kid was just like he was freaking out and trying to get out of the storm.
Right.
And all of us were like, had that Joker smile, like that fake smile, like everything's fine. And it wasn't fine. But what got me through it
was the fact of, like I said, it had been done before.
Right.
And that's what always gets me through it. But funny little side fact to this story. The next night, I was telling the girls here at the house, I was telling the girls the story, and I was like, hey guys, you know what I was doing last night at 11:11? So I told them the story because it was so bad I couldn't tell them when I got home. I waited 24 hours.
Right.
So then the next night, I happened to check the time, and I was like, Dad. And I was really upset because it was 11:11 again.
Right.
I didn't even tell them that time. The next night, it was 11:11 when I checked the time. Sometimes I go through these time prompts, and I know all of you do too. Sometimes it's 3:33. Like the last few times have been 3:33. I haven't had to leave 11:11 in a long time.
No.
For the last, how many days would that be? How many days?
Like 4 days.
Last 4 days. For the last 4 days, I've had 11:11. If I'm awake, and I have been, unfortunately, at every 11:11, I have seen it every time. Right. And we've went through that. Can that be coincidence? Can it be the fact that your eyes are seeing it peripherally, and your brain just works that way, and you gravitate toward it? Can it be that we look at the clock 100 times, and we only process it
when it's 11:11
because it's 11:11?
Yeah,
now these are things
thing.
I think about,
right?
And I really, because I don't want to be that person so gullible. But I'm telling you, after this many years of experiencing time prompt phenomena, and which again, time prompt phenomena didn't start for me until I met you. Yeah. Before I met you, I never once had a thing where I would be like,
and it started like that first year.
Yeah, the first year we met. I never before that had something where I would be like, oh, I seen that time, It's happened since I met you consistently, but the 11:11 thing has been really, really weird this past week. But Stacey made a good point. We've had a lot of good things happen, and maybe it's a good thing.
Right. Like it doesn't seem like it happens constantly. Like it happens in spurts. Like it happens consistently, but sometimes you'll go a while where it's every single time, and then sometimes you won't see it for a little while, and then it'll start happening again. And so, I mean, we've never really tried to line that up with things that were going on, but there's a very good chance that it's
not a bad thing.
Yeah. Not a bad thing.
And you're good for that, because you're the person on investigation that says, maybe that's a good thing. We came here for contact, and we're getting contact. Maybe it's not a demon. Right. So I love that about you. I love the fact that you point that out, because that when you said that it's maybe meant it was something good, you were completely right.
I think so. All right, so this next story is a bit of an update and some new information on something we've already talked about. So do you remember the story that we did about the chaff that was released? It was showing up on the radar.
I do. It was very strange, because we were like, what is it called?
Yeah, exactly.
And we were like, this is supposed to be, they're saying it was normal, and nothing to worry about. It's just chaff. Right. And we were like, what do you, when we were getting ready for that story, Stacey was like, hey, honey, have you ever heard of chaff? And I'm like, is that something you get when you're kind of heavy set and you like wear shorts? And she's like, no, that's chafe. And I was like, oh, then I don't know. And I was like, but it sounds irritating. And she told me what it was. And I was like, I've never heard of that. And she's like, well, it says it's very common. But it was such a stupid explanation for something that was obviously a slow moving UFO. So are you telling me that the chaff is back?
Well, yes, and there's actually an update for that story that we talked about, and that was back in December. And they got this blip on the radar that started in Illinois and drifted over Indiana and Kentucky, and they didn't know what it was.
It hit Kentucky.
Yes, it did hit Kentucky. And the explanation was that there was a training exercise and that a plane had released chaff, which is like for some radar jamming stuff. And
I just hear the plane going, excuse me.
And that was the explanation. So it's come out that a plane from West Virginia did fly over that area and did release chaff. That's what they're saying.
Oh, of course. I mean, I can see a West Virginia plane releasing chaff.
It was a C-130H Hercules.
Oh, well,
and
the C-130 releases chaff. I mean, those things are huge.
And that it was responsible for releasing the chaff. And supposedly that is, now normally it dissipates quicker and for some reason it stuck around and was on the radar, and it was still very strange. And just because they know the plane that delivered it doesn't really explain the whole situation.
Why they released chaff.
Right, some training exercise.
So they do that to block out what they're doing on the radar?
I'm not entirely sure. It's something like that, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there's this news story now, though, that the same blips have shown up over Maine and Florida.
Okay, that's weird.
It is. So it was only a couple days later, 2 days later, than that other event in Illinois and Indiana and Kentucky. And some chaff plumes began to appear in Maine, kind of around Portland area, sort of in that general vicinity. And you could see them. They look like lines on the map, and they were moving down. It was very
Lots
strange.
of military bases up there.
There are, but it does say in this article that the Maine Air National Guard has just one flying unit, and it doesn't release chaff. Out of all of the reserves in the military that's in Maine, they don't really have anybody that does that.
But I will say this, there's a C-130 that is in Maine almost every day.
Yes, well, they do have planes that come from other areas, sort of like this one with the West Virginia.
They have gigantic planes, just from being in Maine, up in Bangor. They have a big military air base there. And I would watch that big Russian plane, the biggest plane in the world, come in. C-130s would come in, and they're amazing because of the way they squeal when they come through.
Right, so they're very loud.
So no, regardless of what the Maine National Guard has, there is a lot of those planes in the state.
Right, they do come in and out. And then they're not sure exactly what time it started, but in Florida, down in the Florida Keys, there was another plume of chaff, and they have no idea where that came from. So
as far as UFOs go, Key West is your main area.
Yeah, exactly. So the question is, why did all this chaff that was released, supposedly, if that's what happened, nobody's saying that they did it over Maine and Florida.
Or they're not?
Nobody's come forward yet to say that they were the ones that flew the plane that released the chaff.
Oh, wow.
So they don't have, like, the first story, they know that it's the plane from West Virginia. They don't know about the other one yet. But for the chaff to do the same thing that close together and not dissipate like it's supposed to is very strange. Like, it's not supposed to hang in the air like that and be caught on radar.
It is. But let me ask you this. Since we didn't even know about chaff.
Right.
Is there a possibility that somebody happened to pick up this chaff and it was very strange, made a big deal about it.
Right.
And it is something that's normal.
Right.
And then a couple of days later, of course, they're just looking for it now. And it's happening.
I mean, it could be. It's because it shows up on the weather radar.
Right.
So it's not something they've ever mentioned before.
Well, you would think as long as we've been into this and as long as we've been looking at radars and we've been that we would have heard of this before.
Yes. Well, there is the conspiracy theory that it's released to cover up UFOs.
Yeah.
Things moving around that they don't want people
like
to see.
Like they're transporting giant UFOs that they're flying
like
themselves.
Moving or even maybe not even UFOs, maybe, just some kind of secret military thing, and
Could
they
be.
just call it a training operation. But very strange, and it's strange that it happened all in the same time frame.
Very interesting that it's happening all in the same week. So I agree with you. I'm just trying to give some alternate thoughts to it because it's something that I really don't know enough about.
No, me neither. Like I said, it's the first time we've ever heard of it, and we might start seeing it all the time now. You never know, now that it's been brought to the attention. But it is still strange.
So speaking of UFOs, there's actually something that's not really full-on news story,
right? But
it's making the rounds in the UFO boards. It's one of the most amazing, if real, one of the most amazing UFO footages I've ever seen.
Right.
It's crazy. Because the freaking UFO comes in and like turns left, I guess. No, right.
Turns right.
Turns right, and comes toward and over the video. Now, what is supposedly happening in the video is the video was shot in 2016, in October 2016, and it's pro shot, and it looks amazing.
Right.
So it was done for a documentary. They were shooting B-roll. For a documentary, and by they I mean a chap named Jimmy Chappie and Sam Korlek. So anyway, we'll put up the raw footage link on YouTube.
Okay.
So you can look at it, but also we'll put up from some UFO sites that break it down and explain it. But basically, There are some UFO footages that come through and they're just a blink of an eye. What you'll see is just look like something shoots right through the frame. And you have to be really looking hard just to see it, right? Mm-hmm. And I've seen this happen many times. One that I can remember is very old footage. And it's like in this little valley, someone was shooting like some woods in a valley. Mm-hmm. And it was overseas somewhere. And there's just a little blip. And when you look at the blip, because it's in the middle of the day, you see this like silver disc.
Right.
And I remember that one vividly because it was one of the ones I just remembered seeing. Mm-hmm. And this was kind of like that, except this was a ship. This was nothing else but a ship.
Right.
It was going too fast to be anything else. They're saying 500 miles an hour. It looked maybe even faster. I don't know.
Well, weren't they shooting the footage from a drone? So it was up in the air also. It wasn't like shooting something from the ground.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
It was shot by a drone. And interestingly enough, it was over a place called Beaver, Utah. Now, Beaver, Utah is a hop, skip, and a jump. That's the professional estimation.
Is it? Yes.
From Area 51.
Oh, I see. So it wouldn't be anything to fly.
Yeah, so it could be one of these things that they're trying out, testing, whatever. All I can tell you that if you watch it, which you all need to stop what you're doing and watch it and then return back. So I'm going to wait. It's for you to watch it, return back. Okay, so you see what I'm talking about. It's pretty crazy what you're looking at and the way it turns. If it didn't turn,
right,
I would be like, well, maybe somebody shot a goose out of a gun.
Well, even if it's going so fast.
Yeah.
Like even the slowed down version was pretty fast.
Yeah, slowed it down version is 2 frames, I think. It's just like
it's really
bleep,
quick.
Bleep.
Yes.
Very crazy. I mean, it's what we talk about on here. You make up your own mind.
Right.
We just throw it out to you.
Well, I think didn't they say it went so fast that they didn't notice it when they were filming?
Right.
They didn't see it until they went back to watch their footage.
Right, but cool on them that they're giving up all the raw footage.
Yes, I thought that too. Like instead of just giving you an edited version,
Dude,
they're uploading the raw footage that you can download and do whatever.
How often is it 3 seconds?
Yeah.
You get no context. And it's just that one little clip of what's happening in the middle of the night.
Right.
A blurry behind a tree. This is in the middle of the day.
Yes.
Beautiful, sunny, blue skies.
Gorgeous. It's not grainy. It's not.
No.
It's like professional.
Looks amazing.
Yeah. Amazing looking camera.
And they give you the before and the after on the video. They give their names. You could contact them. I mean, it's just, it
seems very legitimate.
It does. It seems like amazing. Like either this is the best UFO footage it's ever been. Seriously.
Right.
Or it's a decent fake.
Right.
You know, because there's been really good fakes.
Right.
So just because of the fact that, you know, there's a few things you have to check off. You have to check off the fact, are they telling us who they are? Are they giving us before and after? They get a big set of, you know, are they giving us good reason they were filming? You know, there's a lot of things that go into that.
Right.
When you've been doing it as long as we have.
Right. Yes.
It checked all the boxes for us. So very interesting. The footage is amazing. If it didn't turn like it does.
Yeah.
And you got to understand, guys, I'm not talking about this is up in the sky like you're looking up. I'm talking about you're looking at something coming over the mountains.
Yeah, right at the
and
tree
right
line.
beside comes right toward the camera, right beside the camera.
Yeah.
And it turns and you can see that it's a ship. You can see it's a ship. It's amazing. So if it's fake, good on them.
Right.
Okay, that's not what I'm here to determine.
Right.
I'm just sharing my opinion and telling you to go make yours. But it's freaking cool.
Yes. All right. Well, I'll definitely put links for all of that. So let's move on to this next story. And this is another story that's got some more information about something we've talked about before. So you remember all the stories about the Pentagon's program that came out, you know, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program that they found out that the Pentagon was doing, you know, the UFO research. Well, this is a story where a man named Stephen Aftergood, he is the director of the Federation of American Scientists Project on Government Secrecy. I don't really know what that is, but there you are. He did a Freedom of Information Act, and he wanted to get the list of the 38 research titles that were released that the AATIP was working on, what was funded, what they were actually studying. He wanted to get that list, so he finally got it, and he published it out. And there was some pretty interesting things on that list because after that whole story broke with the Pentagon and with all those things, some places were trying to spin it like, oh, it's just a foreign aerospace threat identification program. They were trying to take it away from being a UFO program, and they were trying to say that it was something. And this was the thing
innocent. That was broke by To the Stars Academy.
Yes,
originally.
Yes. So some of the more interesting projects on the list that they were studying was invisibility cloaking, traversable wormholes, stargates.
Wow.
Negative energy. Warp drive, dark energy, and the manipulation of extra dimensions.
Wow.
Yes. And one that I think was really interesting, and in this article they do an interview with Nick Pope, who's talking about this.
Of course
he's all over this. It's one called An Introduction to the
Nick Pope just lowers out of the ceiling when you start talking about this. Nick Pope here.
An Introduction to the Statistical Drake Equation. So if they were studying the Drake Equation, that's specifically for finding extraterrestrial life in the universe.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting that they actually.
Can you go back to the first one again?
Invisibility cloaking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that there's some guy out there, some intern,
right,
that they've just not been able to find.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I mean,
I'm sure.
That Peters is out somewhere, and it's just like Peters, quit playing around, come out of that thing. I can't, sir. Where are you? I don't know, sir. Can you feel anything? No, sir. Oh, God. It's the guys in the ship all again. What's the guys in the ship? I don't want to talk about it. It's a long time ago. But yesterday for me. Yeah, I mean, because they're into all this crazy stuff, man. Yeah. That's like Nazi stuff.
Well,
that's like, let's put this cat with this horse and see what we can come up with.
Well, this list is actually proof. I mean, there it is on paper of that they were absolutely researching, the extraterrestrial and trying to find aliens and UFOs and that sort of thing. I did notice. I'm going to link this article, and you can.
That's our government.
Yeah,
looking at this stuff.
You can click on the list and look at the actual Freedom of Information Act documents. And I was looking down the list, and there was one on there that I thought was really interesting because it was a study, and I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but it was looking into technology to be able to control external devices without limb-oriented anything. In other words, be able to control things with their mind. Which they can do now. There's been articles just last few months that they have the technology now where military can control drones and things just with their mind.
Right.
So obviously those are all things that not only were they working on then, they are probably still working on.
I've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. Now, that we use a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are in these top secret areas of the government. That aren't exactly like 10th level clearance. like they're in there and they've got a security clearance.
Right.
But they're the kind of people that just hate their job, and they're not into paranormal. And I think they look for those people, Melvin, and Melvin just goes to the office, and he was in accounting for a long time, and they're like, hey, we need somebody to pour us coffee. So and he can answer some requests.
They don't notice him.
He can answer requests from time to time. He has no family. He has 29 cats. That kind of stuff, right? So Melvin is obviously in the office because I can't imagine that Colonel Big Dick or anybody else would give this information. Okay,
right.
I think they would say freedom of what? Freedom of information. Yeah, I got your freedom right here. But Melvin is like, going through the mail. Yeah, going through the mail. I hate my job. I hate everybody. Oh, I wish I was back with Mr. Mufflekins right now. And it's Harry Potter weekend, and we could be enjoying it together. Oh, what's this? Oh, please, freedom of information. Oh, I guess I have to do that. It says it's official. Let's give him the invisibility cloak. We're going through the time and space. Okay, TARDIS, and let's give them all the. I mean, come on. If you're doing this top secret stuff, even that pisses me off. Like, why would you give that out? You know, you're already lying to people. You've been lying to people since the 40s. You don't tell them that you're working on this stuff. There's got to be some intern that just gets shot every time this comes out.
Maybe. I don't know.
If you can listen outside your door, it's like the story drops and it's like, this just in. Low-level government agent Melvin was found eaten by his cats. You know,
there's a position open at the Department of Defense.
We don't know what happened, but 28 of the 29 cats did eat Melvin, and the 29th cat has been missing ever since. He probably pours the coffee now at the shop.
Probably.
Anyway, it's just interesting stuff that to me that they go through so much trouble of secrecy,
right, and only to have to be able to.
Yeah.
Let it out.
Yeah, let me send this freedom of information request from my mom's basement.
Well, it's interesting, all that stuff that came out. So I'll definitely link to that. Go look. You can look right at it and see the whole list. It even shows you who was working on which project.
Oh my God.
It has their names, the universities and stuff. Oh my God. All right, so let's move on. And this is just kind of a cool story from Maine. And it's about the giant disc of ice.
Yes.
That has been spinning in the Presumpcot River.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's common, but not common.
Right. And this one is like 15 miles west of Portland, but it's not the only one, is what's so strange. There is another one in Baxter Park, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah,
which we've been to many times.
So they are natural. They do know how they're formed, but they have to have very specific conditions. Yeah. To be made, you have to have a river where one side's flowing faster than the other, ice on there, and then it's the ice spins and shaves off the edge and it turns into a disc.
Well, it's been a very uncommon winter up there. So they've had a lot warmer, unseasonably warm, and then they've had some really cold spurts. And so I'd say what's happened is because up there, when we lived up there, everything just froze from somewhere around August till June. Right. It was all just, like 30 foot of ice in all the lakes. And this year it wasn't quite as bad. So they froze, but, didn't freeze all the way. And I'd say that probably helped make that. Now they're all frozen up, I think. Right. But I heard there was an update to this, though.
Well, there is. And it became kind of an internet sensation.
Oh, it did. Yeah.
Yeah. And the spinning disc, and it even got caught and stopped spinning until someone came by and broke away some ice away from the it's not part of the disc, but different ice, and it let it start spinning again. I believe it's actually slowed again because there's snow on it, but it has its own webcam.
That's awesome.
Yes, by the city of Westbrook, and Brown University hosts this internet webcam so that people can get on there and check to see what the ice disc is doing. But I believe a story just broke very recently, like today or yesterday or something, where someone was trying to carve on it and broke it. Because people can't just leave things alone.
What were they trying to carve on it?
I believe they were trying to carve a giant peace sign on it.
Oh my God.
So I'm sorry. I don't
Maine is full of hippies, by the way.
I don't know if I'd be brave enough to go out in the middle of the river on a disc of ice that is not attached to anything on the edge.
That's a native Mainer.
I guess.
Oh yeah. Pats are back in the Super Bowl. That's the kind of celebration you have to have.
Yes, but it's a very cool story, and I believe the webcam's still up, so even if it's melting, you can at least go on there and watch it.
I want to go back and watch the jackass out there trying to carve something on it.
In the middle of the disc.
Yeah.
I don't know how the one in Baxter State Park is doing. It was there. It might still be there. I'm not sure. It's not as popular.
Yeah, I think basically that was created by Sasquatch. So
probably. All right, so here's a cool story about Saturn's moon, Titan.
Oh my God.
So we know about Titan. A lot of scientists theorize that it could actually be home to extraterrestrial life.
Because it looks like Earth.
It does. It does. But NASA's Cassini spacecraft, before it made its death plunge, was able to capture some really cool photos, and they realized that in some of these pictures, they have spotted rain. Yeah. On the moon. Yeah. Which is really awesome. Because that's one of the things that you would look for if you were looking for possible life. Now, they did say that the rainfall disappeared quickly, which likely means it was made up mostly of methane rain, but just the fact that it has that process, dude, is just pretty amazing.
The very fact that there's clouds and it rains. I mean, they've always said that this moon could very well have life. I think this moon could have like life.
Right.
You know, and like some weird creatures and that kind of thing, because it's just conducive to making it. And not that it's got, you know, what is intelligent life? You know, I mean, if we weren't here and people found monkeys, they would be intelligent life.
Right.
So it could have some kind of creatures there, which I would love to see. I mean, that's what's so interesting to me is it's not really the technology and all that stuff's great, but I would like to see an animal that, you know,
anything
just is born on another planet and
lives in those harsh conditions
and looks completely different than anything we could imagine, because it adapted to that. So, you know, what would it look like? What would it make? Would something be created there that is something similar to here? And is there a reason for that? Would you have a kangaroo? Would you have dogs? Would you have cats? Or would it be stuff that's completely different? What makes this stuff create the way that it does? Very interesting stuff, because it all starts with the same matter.
Yeah.
So,
and then just depending on your environment,
why does this make this and why does this make that? You know, that's what's really interesting to me. You know, if there's rain there, though, we were taught years ago, and I've said this so many times, it's like a broken record. I won't go on and on with it. I'm just going to say, everybody was always like, well, if they ever find water, you know.
Well, they did say back in September, they spotted dust storms on Titan for the first time. And that was not something that they ever thought was there. So all of those things are just precursors to them even thinking even more that there might be some kind of life there.
Right.
And that's always been one of the prospects that they've tagged Titan.
I can't wait
and
till
Enceladus.
If you notice, like, whenever we find something, we start finding millions of them.
Yes.
Okay, so we find an Earth-like planet.
Right.
In the Goldilocks zone. Something they never thought they would find. And then we find them every day.
Right.
We find liquid. And then we find it everywhere. We get these FRBs. And then they're all over the place.
Well, I mean, do they just show up, or are we just noticing them?
That's what I mean.
Right.
That's what I mean. We figure out how to see them.
Right.
So, or it's just time for us to see them. So that's really one of the things that excites me about finding life. Okay, when we find the first thing that's crawling around, when we find that first little space chipmunk, it's going to be
squirrel.
It's going to open up the floodgates.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
And you know,
because we'll know how to find it. That's like, I mean, if you don't understand that phenomenon, it's like if you go to the car dealership and you buy an orange car because you're like, oh, orange car, I don't know anybody with an orange car, it's great, and then you leave and you see orange cars everywhere all of a sudden. And I mean, that's something that really happens because you never noticed them before, and now you do.
Well, it's like when I named my son. When I named my first son, it was unique, and I was like, I know nobody that has ever named their son Dakota.
Right.
I've never met a Dakota. I've never heard of a Dakota. And then it becomes the next John. You know, maybe not for the whole Dakota, but at least Cody.
Right.
And it's like it's definitely the John of his generation. And when I named him that, no, it was not that way. Now I will say I wanted to call him Coda. That's why I named him Dakota, because I wanted it KOTA. But alas, the family went with Cody.
You know, a lot of our kids did, like Christina. We never really had a nickname for Christina, and everybody just ended up calling her Nina. Yeah. Like it was just a thing.
Yeah. It's just how it works, right? Whatever the family does, that's the way it goes.
All right, so let's move on. Okay, so this is a story that adds on to a story we've done. You remember the story about the Harvard professor that came out with his theory on the interstellar object being a light sail.
I do remember that.
Definitely alien. And he just got tore apart. Like everybody was like, no, that's so silly. Absolutely not. So he has not backed down.
Oh, wow. Good for him.
And he's even adding fuel to the fire. And he did an interview with an Israeli newspaper, and he fiercely defended his hypothesis. And he said, I absolutely believe that this could be, you know, some kind of light sail from an alien civilization. You know, I did all my own research. It was strange. It was seen to accelerate. You know, I mean, he gave all the points, and he absolutely did not back down even one bit about his hypothesis. And I thought it was interesting because they brought up the fact that now people are saying that they've found all these different objects that could possibly be interstellar objects.
Right.
And but it's just a common thing, see, because we found this. And his answer to that was just, look, if you have an alien civilization that's going to send a probe out into deep space, do you think they're just going to send one?
Wow. So it's exactly what we just talked about.
Right.
We'd never seen one, and now they're saying that there's other ones out there. All they're doing that to debunk him.
Right.
But at the same time, let's just say they're right. Let's just say they did find a bunch of other ones that could be interstellar objects. How crazy is that? It's exactly what the point we were just making.
Yes.
Once you find one, you find a million.
And I thought his point was pretty interesting. You know, if you're looking for something in space and you send a probe out, you're not just going to, be like, oh, I guess maybe this direction.
Yeah.
You're going to send tons of them in all different directions to try and find what you're looking for. And
especially advanced ones like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not like they threw a big hunk of junk out like we do.
Exactly. Yeah, right. And just hope for the best.
We throw like aluminum foil in a rabbit ears. I mean, you've seen some of those old. I'm embarrassed.
Let me scotch tape this message to this.
They're always like, do you think that they'll come attack us because we're so advanced? No, I don't. Because you just sent out an umbrella.
Well, I mean, when we did send out that one message, the one time we just sent one, and just hope that somebody saw it. And
we did.
I mean,
and we sent out the coolest thing ever. I still think that that's so cool with the naked people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
all the information
and the songs and stuff. I love that. I'd love to be the one that picked all that.
Well, he said in his interview, he said that he doesn't care what people say, that he says what he thinks, and if the broad public takes an interest, then that's welcome as far as he's concerned, but it's that science is not like politics, and it's not based on popularity.
And we heard that he said at the end of the day, I'm a Harvard scientist and you're not.
His name is Avi Loeb.
I'd be like, I'm sorry, wait. What are you looking for, sir? Oh, I was just looking for the thing on your shirt that said, I'm a Harvard scientist. I don't see it, sir. I'm not a Harvard scientist. Oh, so I'm a scientist at Harvard. At Harvard, yes. And you're not. So what are you? I'm an internet critic. Oh, an amateur scientist, though. Oh, yes. Okay. Get out of here. That's what I would do.
Right. Well, at least he's being a little more diplomatic than that.
But why? You work your.
I mean, he does say that he doesn't care what people say.
Right. Exactly.
And a lot of them don't say that.
And that's what I'm saying, though. You work your ass off to get to a certain level, and that's how I present myself on certain things.
Right.
I'm like, hashtag Bruce Wayne job. If somebody says something to me, I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry. Were you number one last year and the year before and the year before that? I didn't recall. I'm sorry.
Right.
I guess we'll go with my way. And you go, Mr. Harvard scientist.
That's right. I just like that story because most mainstream scientists would have just completely backed down on what they said or retracted it.
They would never have said that it was possible alien.
Yeah, and they never would have done more interviews.
Yeah, never.
So very cool. All right, so let's move on to the next story. And this is a cool discovery. And this is about some remains of ancient life that was found beneath some Antarctic ice.
Oh, well, this is right down my alley. Sounds eerily familiar.
So this is a mission called the Subglacial Antarctic Lakes Scientific Access Mission.
Okay, listen, I wasn't paying attention at the very first. I mean, I was paying attention, but whenever you say a bunch of those words in that certain voice of yours, right. I know you're getting to an acronym.
Should I just jump to the acronym?
So what's the acronym?
SALSA.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
So this mission, this SALSA mission, has discovered the remains of creatures in Antarctica's subglacial Lake Mercer, which is a lake that's covered by 1,067 meter thick sheet of ice. And they've drilled down they used a high pressure hot water drill to cut a small channel through the ice to the lake that's down there. And it's been down there, undisturbed for thousands and thousands of years. And when they were cleaning the lake mud off of the temperature measuring instrument pulled from the water, they discovered fragmented remains of creatures that had actually lived in that lake thousands of years ago.
Wow.
So it's really an awesome, awesome discovery. The theory that they're going with is that the creatures likely inhabited ponds and streams like in nearby areas and then were washed in that way as the ice froze and that sort of thing. But just the fact that they're finding life that from so long ago under this subglacial ice, I mean,
I can't wait amazing to see the age on these things.
Yes. So their next step is to carbon date the remains, and they're going to try to sequence the DNA to determine what it is and how long ago it may have lived. Wow. Whatever it is they found.
So they don't even know what it is. They're not saying
no
either.
idea, because it's just pieces. It's not whole creatures, because they're just pulling it out of the
So let's get back to the acronym.
Okay.
Very cool story. But, from acronyms, a lot of times I can date and tell you without carbon dating how old the scientists are.
Right. Can you?
Because those scientists were probably in their 30s, sometime in the late 80s, when that crop of horrible movies came out.
Right.
Do you remember? So it was like Salsa, the Forbidden Dance. Do you remember that crap?
I vaguely remember that. Yes.
It was like all the salsa classes. It was salsa this. There was like all these salsa things. And
it's just funny. I just find it humorous that they spend so much time naming their projects so that the acronym makes sense.
And they don't have a whole lot to do.
Well, it's because when you're talking about your mission, it's easier to say salsa mission than to say the Subglacial Antarctic Lake Scientific Access Mission.
But they don't have to say all that, though. They could say, the creatures under the lake.
They could. But that'd be cuddle. And that's a weird acronym.
It's cool, though. It's a lot cooler than salsa. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like they really try to force these.
They do.
It's not as funny as how they named their telescopes.
Oh, right, like the
big ass telescope or whatever,
or the giant, humongous telescope and stuff like that.
Literally, what they name them is things like that. The very large, great big telescope.
Yes,
I love that.
Yes. All right, this next story is about something mysterious that appeared in the sky.
Oh.
So this is about a mysterious pillar of light that appeared in the sky over Canada. Now, there's a video that goes along with the story, and you can go and watch it. It's kind of an eerie light, sort of hangs there in the sky, perfectly still during the whole video. It's straight up and down, never moves, doesn't waver, it doesn't touch the ground. It's just very strange. It's just the one
What is it?
pillar of light. Well, there are a lot of theories that go on with these weird things that you see on the side, but there is a reasonable explanation, because there's a natural phenomenon known as, quote, light pillars. Mm-hmm. And that theory says that in cold weather, ice crystals in clouds can refract light in such a way that it looks like a pillar of light disconnected from the ground. And sometimes, when you have lights around, like from businesses, and they reflect and they can look like they're different colors, that sort of thing. And it says this would explain the symmetry and the shimmering quality and how still it was, as opposed to being like somebody flashing a beam in the air, that sort of thing. So I thought this was really interesting because I'd heard about this before, but I haven't really looked into it a lot. So I looked up light pillars just to see some pictures of other.
I've seen plenty of them.
Well, all the other pictures that I saw, there were tons of light pillars.
Yeah, tons. There's always. So when you were talking about it, I was just drawing it. I want to show you this. Okay. I know the people at home can't see, but
okay.
So right here.
Yes.
You were talking about light pillars.
Yes.
So I was drawing light pillars. Yes. There's normally 4, 5, 10.
Yes. Sometimes there's tons, and sometimes, but this video there's one.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Which I thought was very strange.
I've never seen one.
It's just one, and you can watch the video. It's there the whole time, and it's very odd.
Does it show it ever go away, or?
No, I think it's just there for the duration of the video. Okay. I'm not sure that they stood there until it disappeared, but it's kind of reddish in color, and it's very odd.
I tell you, man, there's been some weird stuff this past year, and people are always like, well, that's common. It's like when I took video of that sundog. And put it on our Paranormal Sideshow Facebook. Yes, there have been other people catch that. It's just strange to see.
It is. It is. And this is from Canada, and that's where the light pillar phenomenon happens a lot because it's very cold in Canada. But like I said, most of the things that I had looked at, I haven't studied it in depth, but most of the stuff that I found, like you said, was lots of light pillars, and this was just the one.
Right.
So I don't know. It's something you should look at. It's really strange.
Yeah, it's cool though. I mean, sometimes it doesn't have to be paranormal. Sometimes it can just be a natural phenomenon, but yet it's so rare that it's really awesome to look at.
Yes, very strange. All right, so let's talk about a UFO sighting.
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is from a Pakistani pilot who says he spotted a UFO
It's got a nice ring to it.
Mid-air. So some authorities...
Well, it's a good thing he spotted a UFO in midair.
Yes, and not.
Otherwise, it would be an unidentified, landed object.
So this pilot was doing a routine flight. So as he was flying, he spotted a UFO that was flying higher than his aircraft. Mm-hmm. And he alerted the Civil Aviation Authority about the situation. And they immediately thought that, oh, this is just going to be a drone or something like that.
It's the Americans.
And so they reported it to the local authorities to do an investigation. But the pilot was so disturbed by what he was seeing, he actually changed his flight path and continued flying to his destination. And it wasn't something he had ever seen before. It was very strange for him to see it up there in the air. And this just goes on to the end of the long list of commercial pilots that we've had recently. Yeah. They have seen
tons
UFOs.
Yeah.
And there's been airports that have been shut down because of drone activity.
Yeah.
I think those are actually drones, but you never know. I mean, it's all a lot of things that happen all at the same time. Very strange. And this is, like you said, he's a commercial pilot. He sees things in the air all the time, and he didn't know what this was.
Yeah, that's
Had
always
no idea.
That's always the crazy one.
It made him nervous enough that he wanted to change his flight path
to
get where he was going. So interesting story, and I'll link to it, and you can take a look.
When you're up there above the clouds, it's such a different world. It's crazy because there's like an interstate where you can see all these planes just moving really quickly.
Right.
It's really nuts, especially when you get near a big city like Dallas, where I was just at. And I love being above the clouds because it's like the clouds are your ground. And everything's just different. Like below, it was like a gloomy day,
right?
But up there, it was like blue skies and pretty, and there was so much different stuff up there. So the reason I'm bringing that up is, if you were to see something up there, there's enough up there that it's not like you have a lot of mountains or any of this crap.
Right.
You have the clouds, you have the horizon, like the sky, and that's it, and other planes. So usually, if you're up that high, if you're above 30,000 foot,
right,
40,000 feet, you're going to see some crazy. If you see something crazy, it's crazy.
Right.
So
yeah, I like it when people actually get to take the videos and stuff of things they see out of their plane windows, because
oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of planes, and since you had a flight recently, I thought I'd just do this story, not necessarily paranormal, but maybe. And this is about, I don't know if you've seen this, a flight to Dubai that had to make an emergency landing in Russia because some people on the plane were turning green.
No, I actually heard about this story though, and this story was very troubling to me.
Yes.
It was strange as hell.
Yes. So it was a flight going to Dubai and had to make an emergency landing an hour after takeoff because some of the passengers in coach started to turn green and complain that they were suffocating. And the illness went from rows 21 to 26, just this one area.
Were they near the bathroom?
I don't know. It doesn't say. I don't know how big the cabin was, but one passenger actually said that their pupils were all greatly dilated. One woman was sitting next to her husband, and he was getting ill, and I don't know that she was, but she was freaking out because he couldn't breathe, he couldn't get any air in. Their skin tone was changing color, and eventually the stewardesses were like, we need to land. Told the pilot. Pilot made an emergency landing in Russia. And they had ambulances out there. They actually ended up taking 2 people to the hospital. Other people were reviewed. They checked the entire plane, didn't find anything. And eventually everybody was able to board again and continue their flight. Now, I'm not sure I would have gotten on the same plane myself.
Very strange.
But the whole thing is very strange. There's no official explanation. Nobody's come forward and said it's this or that. Some people are claiming it's possibly food poisoning, but I just don't see how that's even possible.
And not like that. I mean, that's crazy. That's the kind of stuff you see on a show years from now.
Yeah.
And they're like, at that time, everybody started turning green, and they show the recreation,
Right.
Because we're going to find out in a few weeks what it was.
Well, the airlines haven't contacted the news source for, with any comment.
You know what kind of show you would see that on?
What?
Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh, I have that story here.
That it's being rebooted for Netflix.
Yes. Let me get that here. Here it is. Unsolved Mysteries reboot coming to Netflix. I can't wait.
It's one of our favorite shows of all time.
Yes, and they haven't actually come out with a start date or with who's going to host it. It's very important, I think, who hosts it.
Yes.
And they haven't said yet, but I'm still really excited. The only difference between this reboot and the original series is this reboot's only going to tackle one case per show. And on the other one, they would have like a main case and then have like a couple of like B cases. I don't know. They might change that. But according to this...
Why change anything?
I know.
That's stupid. One of the fun things about it would be like, first off tonight.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to talk about green passengers in India.
Right.
It was a weird night. And then we're going to go to Canada and talk about this light plume, you know.
But it's hopefully...
And then we're going to talk about this young government assistant who was found eaten by 28 of his kittens.
Yes, well, I'm sure it'll still be good. Like I said, depending on who they get. You know, I don't know who can compare to Robert Stack, but oh, you think you could do it?
I think I could do it.
You would use that voice too, like that eerie, unsolved mystery
I'd be
voice.
super creepy. I'd be like, tonight, you know. I mean, I don't know where to go from that. I'm just saying.
Right.
Well, that's how we should do our show from now on. At the first, I'll go back and record whatever we end up talking about, and then at the first of the show, I can be like, hello. My name's John Edwards, and tonight, Stacey and I will be talking about, you know, we can go through the whole thing. Okay, so we won't do that. We'll pretend we did.
Well, I'm very excited for that. I can't wait for it to start, and as soon as we get a start date on it, we'll mention it so everybody can watch it.
I'm sure Netflix will screw it up.
Maybe, I don't know. All right, so this next story that we're talking about goes back to the China moon rover. And you remember when we first talked about it, we joked about how people were saying that it was kind of fake and looked fake. And so I found this story on this website that was written by Scott Waring. And we've talked about Scott Waring before. Okay. He's a UFO guy.
All right.
And he has the UFO Sightings Daily. And he posted this whole article about how he thought this China moon landing was faked. And he showed a picture. And his reasoning was because in this picture, there was this line in the picture. And he theorized that line was a marking for where they were supposed to Photoshop the rover into the picture. And they just forgot to take the line out.
Right.
So some people were like, well, I think that might be, a reflection. And he didn't feel like that was the case. And so he put this big article up. So then a few days later, maybe a week later, he updated his story. And he admitted that he was wrong and that he jumped to conclusions.
Really?
Yes, he put up a whole article about it. What happened was he kept doing research into it, and he found a video instead of just the picture.
Right.
And on the video, as the rover turns, that reflection line moves with it.
Wow.
And so he immediately went on his story. He did not delete his original story. He didn't change it in any way. He just made an update that said, I was wrong. Here's this video. He posted the video. He said, it is a reflection. The reflection's following it. And he said, I'm going to keep my report here because, I'm only human. Sometimes I make mistakes. I jump to conclusions too quickly. But here you go. Here's the rest of the story.
Well, that is refreshing.
It is. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because we did talk about how some people were saying that the pictures looked faked.
Yeah.
And that maybe they didn't really land on the far side of the moon. So I thought that was a refreshing take on, finding out that
because the pictures looked like really dark brown.
Right.
Like the dirt was looked like more traditional clay or something.
Yeah, it was odd.
Yeah, it was odd. So what it could be?
What's that?
Is that China's really up there and we never went.
Right. I'm sure that's a very good possibility. It's a very good possibility. So I thought that was interesting. I'm going to link to it. So if anybody wants to go look at it, I just thought it was cool that he did admit, instead of just deleting it and acting like it was never done.
That's amazing.
He owned up to it. So
that's very cool. All
right. So I have a couple more stories here. Some things I thought were really interesting. And this first one's about a discovery. And it's a new unique gemstone from Israel. And the International Mineralogical Association has recognized it as a new distinct mineral.
Wow.
It's called cameltizite. And it's kind of a mixture of titanium, aluminum, and zirconium. And they found that it is harder than diamonds.
Wow.
Yes. And so the chemical formula resembles something called allandiite, which is a mineral that was identified for the first time in the Allende meteorite. So it's very similar to that alien,
right.
composition. And
crazy.
It is very crazy. And the mining company that found it, they're mining in Mount Carmel, which is how it gets part of its name. They were mining the volcanic rocks. I believe they're looking for sapphires and things like that. They're the ones that discovered it, and it's very rare. This is the only place that it's been found, and it's really hard to come by. It just kind of grows in the cracks and things. And so they have trademarked it as a Carmel sapphire, and they're going to eventually market it in jewelry, but they believe that it's going to end up being really, really valuable because it's really rare and it's harder than diamonds and it's hard to find.
No,
so
that's cool.
It's very cool, and I think it's cool that it's very close to this, this material that they just
From
found
space.
in space, and makes it very interesting. So really cool. I don't think it's very often that the Mineralogical Association makes new minerals.
No, you don't get new gems very often.
No.
Very neat.
All right, so this last story, very cool story. This is from Boston.
Oh.
And this is about an 84...
About Tom Brady.
It is not about Tom Brady. 84-year-old Boston man named Wilson Menashe. He is being hailed as the octopus whisperer.
Okay.
So this is such a cool story, and there's videos, and you have to go watch it. Menashe is a retired chemical engineer, and he began volunteering at the New England Aquarium in Boston. Oh. And he has spent decades taking care of the octopus that they have there. They have two huge ones. One's named Freya, and I don't think they mentioned the other one's name. But in the video, you can see him. He puts his arms down, and the octopus is like hug him and take treats from him, and he just has a way with them. And he even designs puzzle boxes for them to use. He puts food in puzzle boxes with latches and things and gives them to the octopus, and the octopus figure out how to open them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy. And he just finds the animals fascinating and has a way, like you can even see in the video that he just has a way with them, like they just look at him and he looks at them. He says the only thing really funny about it is he says he'll go home with hickeys all over him, and his wife will be, look at him and be like, what have you been doing? She knows what he's been doing, but from the octopus. But it's really a cool story, and the fact that he can communicate with them so well.
Yeah.
It even mentions that he has to make different puzzles for each octopus because they're different. Like they're very unique and at different levels and things like that. So I don't know. The whole story is really cool. It's definitely worth a look and a watch. And just if you think octopus are creepy like we do,
well, we think they're aliens.
Exactly.
And
they're biding their time in the New England Aquarium.
Yeah, they're super smart, and yeah, that's wicked cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
So I'm glad he's being fulfilled like that, but it's definitely a really interesting story.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all my news.
Well, that was awesome. I liked it. That was just the octopus thing has me freaked out. Sorry.
It's okay.
I just keep picturing it. They give him hickeys. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's our stories for today, and we've had an exciting show for you, and we're just really raring to get the book out here, and honestly, we have the edited version coming to us, and we're going to take a look at that. So, yes. But having the hard copy in our hands,
oh, I can't wait!
It's going to be so nice. I just want to go beat someone with it, and but it's just going to be really nice, and we can't wait for all you guys to read it and all that good stuff. Hopefully next week we'll have some information for you on the pre-orders. Like I said, if you want to go to patreon.com/paranormal sideshow, you can go ahead and do your order there and get the paranormal sideshow off of the 5th kind.
Right.
And that would be sweet. If you want to follow us at home, as always, go to paranormalsideshow.com. Other than that, for my lovely, sexy, and very brilliant wife, Stacey. Yes, he's very French. I'm going to try that out here in a second, the French kissing. Hashtag mommy daddy time. My name's John. So long from the Sideshow.
Good night.
Hey guys, if you like what you've heard, please check out ParanormalSideshow.com and follow the links for our weekly podcast. Also, become a Sideshow off yourself and pick one of our killer levels on our Patreon to help support the channel and help keep us bringing you bigger and better content. So until next week, for my lovely wife Stacey, I'm John Edwards. So long and
stay strange.